There's less than 30 days to go until Election Day, and Democrats are feeling nervous. New data shows Vice President Kamala Harris making virtually no inroads with male voters, which could sway the election in Trump's favor. In fact, one poll has Trump 51% to Harris's 40% among men. To break it down for us, we're joined now by The Hill's congressional reporter, Mychael Schnell. Mychael, a batch of new polls this week is confirming that suspicion among Democrats about Harris's standing with male voters. What do the latest numbers show?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. We're seeing in some polls Vice President Kamala Harris trailing former President Donald Trump among male voters by nearly a dozen percentage points. And now it's important to note this isn't exactly a new phenomenon. Vice President Harris was grappling with this gap among male voters compared to Trump since right when she ascended to the top of the ticket after Biden dropped out over the summer. But as we get closer to Election Day, Democrats are becoming more and more concerned about that gap because, of course, as we see in all the national polls and the battleground surveys, this race is just so close and every vote is going to matter. So Democrats are starting to get a bit more concerned about that gap among male voters.
Well, former President Obama is on the campaign trail for Harris, and this moment has been getting some attention. Listen.
You think Donald Trump ever changed his identity? I almost said that, but I decided I shouldn't say it.
What do you make of that moment? Do you think it sort of signals a shift in tone from President Obama, like what we saw during the DNC, or do you think it's the same old Obama just, joking on the campaign trail?
I think beyond all that, Bianca, it's just significant that President Obama is on the campaign trail right now. Obama is one of the most popular figures within the Democratic Party, according to surveys. He's someone who is beloved by Democratic voters. So the fact that we're seeing him on the campaign trail now, let alone in some of these key swing states, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, it shows that the Harris campaign is really trying to use some of its top surrogates and top voices as we get closer to Election Day to try to convince as many voters as they can to vote for Kamala Harris. They're bringing out one of their strongest proponents right now in former President Obama.
So former President Bill Clinton is also starting to campaign this weekend for Harris as well. What should we expect from his part of the campaign tour?
Yeah, so while we're seeing President Obama focus on more of those blue wall swing states, places like Pennsylvania, Arizona, really mainly Pennsylvania there, we're seeing former President Bill Clinton, we're going to see him more focus on some of those southern voters and southern states. He's going to be in Georgia, then he's going to have a bus tour in North Carolina. Again, Bill Clinton, another popular figure within the Democratic Party, someone who saw pretty decent popularity numbers when he was in office and still does. So this again just shows the Harris campaign pulling into its bag of surrogates and top voices, trying to bring out the strongest among them as we get closer to Election Day and we're really in crunch time.
Well, on top of some of the former presidents, some blue state governors are also preparing to campaign with Harris. Which ones are we going to see on the trail, and what are they focusing on?
Yeah, that's right. We're seeing some Democratic governors who are planning on uniting and to campaign for Vice President Kamala Harris. That's going to include Michigan's Gretchen Whitmer, Pennsylvania's Josh Shapiro, and Wisconsin's Tony Evers. They're going to be having a driving forward blue wall bus tour that's going to stop in all of their home states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And of course, those are some of the key states that are most key to this election. Those are the battleground states that are really must win for whoever wants to be in the White House next year. So we're seeing these governors, again, this goes back to the idea of the former presidents stumping on the campaign trail. Some of these governors are some of the best communicators right now within the party. And the Harris campaign is trying to really bolster and use their best voices as we get closer to Election Day.
Well, a new survey shows that 40% of voters plan to vote early this year. What else do we know about those voters? And do you think this could help one party more than the other?
Yeah, so right now we are seeing a discrepancy in folks who are saying who if they're going to vote early. There was a recent survey that said that 46% of Democrats say that they plan to vote early, were more likely to vote early rather, but only 31 Republicans said the same. Independents were in the middle at 43%. This could potentially have some impact when we talk about what election night looks like and what the week after Election Day looks like, because as we saw in 2020, there's sometimes some states lag and some districts lag in when they count their results and report their results. One would think that by voting early, you then have that all ready to go immediately on election day. So this could potentially influence when you see votes roll in on election day, but it's quite interesting to see Democrats more likely to vote early this election.
I want to wade into state politics here really quickly. The Maryland Senate debate was last night, and Angela Brooks is virtually guaranteed to win over Larry Hogan, according to polls. But I'm wondering if anything stood out to you in that debate last night.
There were two things. First off, the focus on abortion and women's reproductive rights. It's no surprise because this has been a really big issue for Democrats this cycle, and we saw Angela Brooks embrace that. She mentioned abortion in her opening statement, in her closing statement. It was the first question that the two candidates were posed by the debate moderator, and we saw abortion and women's reproductive rights, the frustration over the fall of Roe v. Wade back in the summer of 2022, motivate and galvanize voters ahead of that election, Democratic voters, and that led to better than expected Democratic returns. So I've spoken to a number of Democratic lawmakers who are hoping for that same situation this year, that frustration about the fall of Roe, but also just awareness about different ballot initiatives focusing on abortion rights, that will propel more of their voters to the ballot box and help them vote up and down Democratic. So that was one thing. And then another thing that was on full display was Larry Hogan trying to make himself out to be a moderate. This was, again, no surprise. Hogan is one of the more moderate voices in the Republican Party. He's one of the most foremost anti-Trump Republicans, and he's going to have to moderate himself and show that he's a moderate if he wants to win in a blue state like Maryland. We definitely saw that on full display during that debate.
U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan agreed to unseal more filings from the January 6th case, which is a move that we know Trump's lawyers plan to challenge. But what happens next from here, and do you think it could impact the election?
Well, next, I think we're going to have to wait and see if the Trump team does indeed challenge it. As you mentioned, they're expected to. Will that happen, come to fruition? What will that look like? That's what we're waiting for next. Talk about the impact of the election. I don't think so. This is not the first Jack Smith filing that we've seen. We've seen previous ones in recent months, and it hasn't moved the needle at all in terms of voters. We also know that we're not going to see the Jack Smith case be adjudicated before the November elections, so we're not going to see a result in this case. So I think that by and large, we have seen that this case and these cases really have not influenced the election. I think that'll be the same case, the same situation rather, when we talk about this recent filing.
So is it safe to assume that if former President Trump does win in November, that every single legal case against him will just go away forever and nothing will ever come of what has been brought against him thus far?
I don't think necessarily. I think we'll have to wait and see. I mean, one for sure is that we're talking about two cases that are on the state level in Georgia with the election interference case, and then also there's his situation in New York, talking about his business empire there. So there are some matters and legal entanglements surrounding the former president that are not on the federal level. I think the federal level cases, the Jack Smith ones, are going to be a real question, but the ones on the state level, I think you can expect they would continue to trot along.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Will be definitely interesting to see what happens. But President Biden is pressing Congress to come back early to pass disaster relief funding. FEMA recently announced it spent half of the money appropriated for the fiscal year in just 8 days. What are the chances of lawmakers coming back early?
Very slim right now. You mentioned, Bianca, that the President Biden is calling on Congress to reconvene. We've heard the same from a number of Republican and Democratic lawmakers, but there's really no appetite for that among Speaker Mike Johnson. He has said time and time again that FEMA has enough money to deal with the immediate impacts of the Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. We saw Congress, just before they left for this October recess, pass a continuing resolution that replenished FEMA's disaster relief fund. Speaker Johnson is now saying that that fund has enough money, again, for FEMA to deal with the immediate impacts of these storms. And then when Congress reconvenes after the election in the middle of November, that'll be a different question. So expect to hear more about a potential supplemental and potential additional disaster relief when they reconvene in November, but we're not going to see, there's a very small chance we'll see lawmakers come back to Washington before then.
All right, Mychael Schnell, congressional reporter at The Hill. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
At least 16 people are confirmed dead after Hurricane Milton left a path of destruction across Florida. Residents of the state begin to return home and start picking up the pieces, assessing the damage caused by the Category 1 hurricane. More than 18 inches of rain dropped over St. Petersburg, and several areas are still under flood warnings as river levels continue to rise after the storm. 2.4 million people are still without power, and gas station outages continue to increase across the state, hitting the Tampa area where, according to Gas Buddy, 3 and 4 stations are currently out of fuel. On the ground now in Tampa is NewsNation national correspondent Alex Capriello.
I'm coming to you from Tampa, Florida, where we are in record and historic flooding that you could still see exist more than 36 hours following Hurricane Milton's landfall. These are apartment buildings, and you could see that they are almost certainly flooded. You could tell the height of the water just based on that fire hydrant right there, almost to the top. And the fact of the matter is, for the people that live in these homes, these apartments, these assisted living facilities, there's no way in or out using their cars. They're almost certainly flooded, which is why we're seeing so many people having to make the trek by foot through this dark and dangerous swampy water. There are officials there in the background that you are seeing sort of take in to account everything that they're seeing, trying to figure out how they can help these people. Not to mention, I've seen 1 or 2 high water rescue vehicles plow through this water, trying to do whatever they can to help out. The mayor of Tampa has gone on the record today saying that they hope to bring pumps in to help ease some of this water, get it out of here so people can get back to living their normal life. This is the reality for the people following this historic hurricane as they try to rebuild Florida following Hurricane Milton. Bianca.
In the meantime, a little bit of happy news out of Florida. This video of a dog found tied to a fence during Hurricane Milton went viral earlier this week. You can see the water reaching his belly when Florida Highway Patrol troopers rescued him. But take a look at him now. He was taken to an animal rescue in Tallahassee where he's recovering well, and staff at the rescue named him Trooper because of how much he's been through and to honor those who saved him. They say troopers received a lot of requests to get adopted, but workers say they won't be taking any applications until he's rehabilitated. The Department of Justice announcing a $3 billion fine on TD Bank Thursday. That's after the bank pleaded guilty to charges related to money laundering for drug cartels. The DOJ says during a 6-year span, TD Bank failed to monitor more than $18 trillion in customer activity, and that allowed 3 money laundering networks to transfer hundreds of millions of dollars. Attorney General Merrick Garland said in a press conference Thursday that employees were well aware of the failures in TD Bank's anti-money laundering systems.
In August 2020, one TD Bank store manager emailed another store manager and remarked, quote, "You guys really need to shut this down. LOL. TD Bank created an environment that allowed financial crime to flourish."
TD Bank says it is cooperating with the DOJ, and Garland says there is potential for future cases against specific individuals. Music mogul Diddy Combs is now set to go on trial for sex trafficking and racketeering in May of next year. That date was set during a hearing Thursday after Diddy's lawyers moved to exclude what the prosecution is calling a damning piece of evidence. That evidence was the now infamous 2016 video of Combs punching and kicking his former girlfriend Cassie in a hotel hallway. Combs' team claimed that evidence was leaked by the government and that it could taint the jury pool. Prosecutors say the leaks were not from their team and that the defense was trying to throw out critical evidence. In the meantime, Diddy's team is appealing bond rulings from 2 different judges that have kept him in jail since his arrest last month. Elon Musk's Robotaxi is here, and the vehicle has no steering wheels or pedals. The long-awaited Tesla driverless car, dubbed the Cybercab, was debuted Thursday night and comes with a $30,000 price tag. Musk anticipates the Cybercab will arrive before 2027 and will charge using wireless induction technology, with the possibility of using tracks on roads or mats. Tesla will be conducting unsupervised full self-driving trials in California and Texas in 2025. According to Musk, more unsupervised tests will take place wherever regulators agree to it. Tesla also debuted the Robovan, a larger electric vehicle designed to transport up to 20 people. It can also carry a large amount of cargo and be used for commercial or personal use. New swing state polling shows the candidates neck and neck, but when pollsters looked at who is supporting each candidate, a noticeable trend emerged. Mike Facchinei breaks down the numbers in today's Political Minute.
It's a swing state dead heat. I'm Mike Vaccaro with NewsNation in Washington. Less than a month to go before Election Day, and former President Trump and Vice President Harris are still locked in an incredibly close race. That's according to a new poll from The Hill and Emerson College. Across the swing states, the candidates are separated by 2 points or less. Trump is up in 4 of the states, Harris up in 1. In Michigan and Wisconsin, it's a tie. And in all of the swing states, the gap is within the poll's margin of error. These numbers have hardly shifted from September to October. Neither candidate has gained or lost more than a percentage point in any of these states. It all points to a tightly locked race. But the poll does show a gender gap between Harris and Trump in 6 of the 7 states. More men choose Trump and more women choose Harris. The only outlier is Arizona, where both men and women support Trump, but only by a thin margin. I'm Mike Vaccaro. This is the NewsNation Political Minute.
That's today's Daily Debrief. I'm Bianca Facchinei. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel, and come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.